is off, and we're going to go in 3, 2, 1, and hello, welcome to G3. We're the ladies who talk tech and whatever we want. All right. Today is July 31st, 2015. This is episode number 40. It's the big 40. Woo! And I'm your host, Tina Chase Gilmore. I don't know what's been going on the past few weeks. To me, it seems kind of like slow tech, but let's find out from my lovely co-host today. Francine Hardaway, you're back from Europe. Hello, Francine.
Hello. I saw a lot of tech in Europe.
Yay. We'll get to that really, really soon. Rebecca Woodcock. Hi, Rebecca.
Hello from foggy San Francisco.
Foggy San Francisco. We're having a foggy summer.
It is cold.
It's cold and foggy, just like summer's supposed to be in San Francisco.
Just like
guess.
Brittany and London, where I just came from. It was so cold, I nearly froze my butt off.
We have kind of twin weather there, I think.
Yeah.
And Christy, who is often in Ireland, you're in San Francisco right now. You're dealing with fog as well. Hello, Christy. And back from Salt Lake City just this week.
Where it was not foggy.
Where it's not foggy.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I was watching one of the Who Do You Think You Are episodes, which you know I love so much. I love that show. Watch the season opener with
Ginnifer Goodwin.
Ginnifer Goodwin, right?
Amazing.
What? Who do you think you are?
Oh, Christy, could you let us know?
It's a show that actually started in the BBC about 10 years ago, but here in the States, Lisa Kudrow of Friends fame started it, where they get celebs to go down a family history journey, and Ancestry powers a lot of the back-end genealogical research. And so it's on, right now we just kicked off the last season, what started on Sunday. It's on TLC, and it's cool because it's like you get to see a little glimpse of like some of your beloved stars. We've got Bryan Cranston from Breaking Bad's on this season. Alfre Woodard's coming up too. J.K. Rowling. Like I said, Ginnifer Goodwin that just did it this last week was actually probably one of my favorites I've ever seen. It's just a pretty emotional story. And you just kind of trace their family roots and watch them kind of get exposed to what it's like to kind of know a little bit more about who you are and where you come from.
Oh, wow, that sounds... Actually, I'll watch it.
Yeah,
it sounds
good.
Great.
For me.
What network is it on?
It's on TLC. So I think Sunday nights at it'll be 10 for us, so 9 Central.
I'll be DVRing it.
Yeah.
There's like 400 things on Sunday night.
Yes, and I find it riveting, and you really get sort of emotionally involved with the story, and you're really feeling these things as these people are exploring. Usually I often see that the celebrity has this unknown side of their family, and they want to uncover something about that side, and often there are things that just nobody had ever known about, and it can be kind of emotional. And what they uncover, and it's really a nice ride, and for genealogists.
And they stick it to them at the first time on camera.
Do they what?
Do they tell it to them for the first time on camera?
Well, I mean,
we do. We spend 2 weeks. So some of this, just a quick synopsis, like this research can take anywhere from 4 months to a year to develop these stories, because we actually are going into their family trees and trying to figure out where the interesting things lie. Like Chelsea Handler's story last year was interesting because half of her family is Jewish and half her family is German. And so it was dealing with the conflict of what that really meant and kind of coming to terms with her history as a whole. And some of the folks have like Revolutionary War patriots that they never really realized. And so for them, it kind of gives them a sense of Americana. And Christina Applegate had a great story about tracing her dad's roots because he didn't have much information or know where his mother had was buried. And so it's interesting for me because it's like taking family history is a very personal story. And so we do spend, when we get to filming on location, sometimes it can be as much as 2 weeks with the celebrity, and we travel around the world with them. And yeah, as we are exposing some of these storylines. It's the first time they've ever heard about it, and it is all on camera. And we don't
Wow,
share
that's
everything
fascinating.
because you're trying to condense it down to like a 45-minute episode. But it's great for me. It really helps people who don't think you're a family historian or a genealogist per se. I don't consider myself that, but I'm an enthusiast and I like knowing a lot more about my ancestry and where my family came from. And I find the show's informational because I learn little new things, or I learn little bits about history that maybe I
Yeah.
didn't pick up in high school. And I think that's kind of a cool program to kind of soak in.
And often for
Yeah, I actually joined Ancestry a while back before you were associated with it, and I found out that I found out exactly when my family came over in like 1905 and where they came from, and I saw their Ellis Island records. It was pretty fascinating.
It's amazing. And then for you to maybe go to Ellis Island and actually walk through and see it there too. For me, it just kind of gives you that sense of self, and you kind of appreciate what people had to go through 100 or more years ago. And it's pretty eye-opening, and gives me true appreciation for just how good we actually, for as bad as we think some of us have it, we actually have it extremely good.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, my children on the side of their father actually belong to the DAR, or can belong to the DAR. They have chosen not to, but they have the roots that allow them to. On the other hand, their last name, Hardaway, is a name shared by many, many Black people because it is a Southern name, and it's an old Southern name. So this has been really fascinating, just looking into their side of it. On my side, a lot of people were lost during the Holocaust, so there's less to know. Whoever didn't get here in 1905, when my father's and mother's families came, they probably didn't get here at all, So
And I think that's the underbelly of it a little bit, right?
Yeah,
You want to kind of
right.
explore and say, oh, it's great, I'm related to Charlemagne or some royalty, but then sometimes you start digging in and realize, like for me, I come from a long line of farmers, and some people, you have the Holocaust and you have some slave ownership, and there's some negative things in our history. And I think part of it is good that when we start looking about the traces in the past that people took over time, and just trying to get a better sense of self again, and kind of understand that you can't change what took place back then, but hopefully it's helped shape who you are today, and it gives you a better appreciation for the world around us as well.
It gives you a better appreciation of history. And, I'm going to segue back to tech here. We're in the tech industry, and we look at the furthest back we look is the present. Mostly we look into the future. So the Ancestry really, there used to be a statement called, history repeats itself, and if you don't learn from it, you are destined to make the same mistakes over and over.
Doomed to repeat it.
Doomed to repeat it. That's exactly right. So we who are looking only forward, we're missing a piece. We are really missing a piece, and I'm the worst offender.
Sometimes you really have to look backward to be able to understand forward, and to be able to understand the steps you need to take in the here and now. I can definitely lose myself in the research, and then I have to come up from air and put it away for a while. I think that's pretty typical of hobbyist genealogist. It can be great fun, and I agree, Francine. I think that's an interesting tie with technology. Maybe that's why I enjoy it so much, is that it does sort of like give me this balance of the here, future, forward, and here, back to the past.
Well, it's like the tech valuations and the tech bubble now. If everybody in tech is so young that they don't remember what happened in the 90s, what happened in the 80s, what happened, in 2001, and even what happened in 2008. And those were real, there have been some real down cycles in tech that people just think may not happen again. And I know damn well they're going to happen again. I'm just waiting to see what moment, they will happen in. Because I've been through all of those down cycles, and I know another one is going to come. And every time I see something like HomeJoy shut down, the shutting down of HomeJoy, plus the government's decision that it might raise interest rates before the end of the year, those are going to have major consequences for all these unicorns. And we just don't know how those are going to play out. But
what do you make of the HomeJoy shutting down?
Well, it's very interesting because Sarah Lacey wrote a great post the other day called "The Only Uber of Everything is Uber." And what she was saying in that post is that Uber is in a class by itself because there's a big pain in hailing a taxi cab. There definitely is. And that pain repeats itself over and over again. And it's very hard not to use Uber only once. Once you use it and you realize that solves your pain, you use it again and again because you have the pain again and again. Whereas a service like HomeJoy, you use it, and if you really like the people who are cleaning your house, you hire them on the side without going through HomeJoy anymore, because HomeJoy sends a different team every time. They can't help it because they're part of the gig economy. So they don't have steady employees, so therefore your service is not the same all the time. And, people aren't stupid. And if they want their house cleaned the way they want to clean, they'll hire the HomeJoy person, around HomeJoy, just like they'll rent from the Airbnb property owner. If there's a place they want to stay in a lot of different times, they'll find that owner and go around the service. And that's only one problem. That's the one Sarah pointed out. The other problem is how many people cannot afford any of these services. So, it's a market that's for people who are very affluent and can afford to have Postmates deliver their meals at a 10% surcharge, or, Blue Apron chop up all their ingredients and send them to them for a surcharge. I've used all of these services because you know me, I try everything. And I have tried all of these services, and most of them I've discarded because for the extra money involved in using them, the benefit is not worth it,
Yeah, actually, I agree with that. I've stopped using a lot of them too because, well, for one, I'm kind of a cheapskate, and I'll save $1 here and there, and it just doesn't seem worth it to me to spend that much more on delivery surcharges and all that, unless I'm ill. Actually, that's the only time I use those services, and I'm confined to my bed. But it really, some of it is kind of a hassle and actually not as convenient as they make it out to be. Sometimes you have to pick a certain window of time where you can have it delivered, and that might not always be the most convenient, or just going through the process of ordering something can be, in some cases, kind of laborious, actually.
When you have to sort of rearrange your life to fit into their model, it doesn't really work.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why Uber
it.
works so well, is because you don't have to do that.
And that's why, Sarah's point was that Uber is probably the only one that's really got the long-term staying power. The other point she made that I didn't even touch on yet was that in some of these areas, the VCs have come in like sheep, and there's like 11 of these companies. There's like so many food delivery services now, it's impossible. You can't even keep track of them. Mm-hmm. And there's local ones, there's national ones, they're all in different cities because they all have different rollouts and expansions. I have no idea outside of, Grubhub, which has been around for a while and which has a very limited number of restaurants, so I don't use that. You know, I found out randomly the Postmates was finally in Phoenix. And that is yet another issue with some of these on demand companies. Suppose you don't live in San Francisco. Suppose you don't live in New York. God forbid. You know, how do you even know if these services are in your town? I mean, I guess I'm not as high on them as all the VCs are.
I think it's a great business model. I think in some cases it's going to work better than others, like the shopping cart thing. It is to me a very elite thing. It's probably not going to be as mass market as they hope, like an Uber or something like that. But look at a TaskRabbit, you know, or something where you just need random stuff done, and you just don't have uh, the time to do it all, or the hands, as many hands as you need. And you know, that's a perfect example where you can just hire a freelancer. I mean, it's a freelancer market, really. In the case of HomeJoy, where it seems like it breaks down is where you need a certain level of trust. And so, like you said, HomeJoy, once you find somebody good, you want to stick with that person. But that's because you're allowing people in your home. They're touching your things. You don't want them to steal. You want them to do a good job. And there's actually a lot of similarities to problems that Elance has. Again, you know, you want somebody you can trust, who's developing your website, who you can call on, who's doing a good job, because there are a lot of fakers out there. And so they've had a lot of problems too with people going outside of Elance. But what I think the difference with Elance versus HomeJoy is that Elance can get an economy of scale where they just get all this volume that even if you do end up going outside of Elance because you find someone you really like, there's still that volume that makes up for it. I don't know if a company like HomeJoy could overcome that.
Well, there's no geographical limitation on Elance. You know, the
Exactly.
person
That's
who's
true
doing your
too.
website can be in Bangalore. The person who's cleaning my house cannot. You know,
Exactly.
that's a huge difference right there. But you know, I've
Yeah.
had the same person cleaning my house for 20 years, and I'm really very faithful. So I would never use a service like that. And then I know a whole bunch of people that won't even allow anyone to come in and clean their houses because they absolutely know that that person doesn't do as good a job. But I'm not interested so much in HomeJoy as one service. I'm interested in the long-term possibilities of the on-demand economy and whether it actually, the whole thing has legs.
Well, I think it's
Yeah.
interesting because oh, sorry, Rebecca, go ahead.
No, go for it.
I think it's interesting because, we started out with all of this called the sharing economy. And as I don't think places like Uber and some of these fit in that. But the new terminology people are starting to reference, like as in the gig economy.
Hmm.
And I think I think it's got legs. I think it's interesting. I think there's going to be some concerns with regards to how well prepared are individuals to be part of this gig economy. I mean, it sounds great to earn income on the side through these services, right? And these platforms are giving me an opportunity to do so. I'm always going to err on the side of I wish there was better education for an individual to understand the complexities of you are now a business owner of yourself, whether you clean somebody's house once or you clean it 45 times, and what those ramifications come to with tax returns and keeping track of all of this. And do you then need business licenses? And I think I'm super excited about the gig economy because I've done a lot of consulting work in the past, but I also think that there's going to be some cracks because a lot of individuals don't actually understand what it means to run their own business.
Well, I always talk to every Uber driver and ask the same questions. How long have you been driving for Uber? You know, do you like it? Are you able to make a living? And we had this guy at Wimbledon who took us from Wimbledon, and we got in this huge altercation with a policeman because a policewoman because they don't like Uber to park at Wimbledon. They only like the London black cabs to park there. But you know, our Uber driver drove up there because another policeman had told him he could, and then we got a half a block down, and a third policeman told us we had to get out of the car because the Uber driver wasn't supposed to be in front of the gates at Wimbledon. And the Uber driver, after we settled all of this, the Uber driver told us that he has been driving for Uber for a year and that the law is enforced separately, differently for Uber and for the London taxis, and that he's very annoyed because he's actually thinks of himself as a business owner. This is his full-time job. As he said, I pay taxes, I pay the insurance, I do everything I'm supposed to do, but I'm basically discriminated against by law enforcement because of the taxi lobby and because they don't like Uber. So in that case, here was a guy who is desperately trying to make a go of it, an immigrant, which many of the Uber drivers are, and why I think the gig economy is a good thing, Christy, insofar as it's fair. But there's a part of it that's also reducing people to a little bit above serfdom. You know what I mean? It's not sharing, and it's not even collaborative
when it makes
anymore.
people feel less than.
Right.
I think there is a bit of an issue there, but might that change in time? Might Uber become the better solution and the taxi become the lesser solution and the not as prominent? We don't know. Can it make that turn?
I think it can. Oh, go ahead, Rebecca.
It seems like the taxi companies or unions that are kind of with it now are starting to follow Uber's lead and fix some of the issues and actually implementing some of the features. And then those who aren't, like the ones in France or London, they're just trying to resist and still remain crappy services. I mean, they should take a little bit of a look in the mirror and say, would I want to use this service, and why are people? I mean, you can't force people to get in the car with someone that you don't want to get into a car with because they are telling you they only accept cash, or they are not taking you directly to the place you want to go, or their cab smells like cigarettes.
Right.
I mean, why should anyone be forced to make a decision like that when they're just trying to get from A to B?
That is the good part of this economy, because it is forcing people to realize what lousy customer service they've been giving. Because people don't leave a service and try something new unless the thing that they have been using is unsatisfactory. There's just such a strong inertial pull toward.
And
let's look at the cable industry.
Yeah, and the reaction by saying, well, we need to regulate more and force people to use us is the worst reaction in the world. And I wish they would just get with it and update their mentality and their approach to business for the 21st century.
Right, but you want industries to be innovating, and when they become a lot monopolistic, or when they just have a hold on, a stranglehold on, whatever it is, they don't. We know they don't, and this is how Uber was able to do what it did.
But
this is why the cable industry is in shit right now.
But I think the thing that's interesting about the taxi industry is, like, in some industries, like I'll say Microsoft, Intel, I mean, whoever, like IBM, Intel, the guys that make chip makers, right? These are big brands competing against one another, and you get a startup that comes in that can innovate a better chip. That's one thing. The thing that's interesting about, like, say, the taxi industry is, while there's a vested interest as, say, the taxi, what do you call it, the union, whatever that happens to be, individuals in that have to spend a lot of money to get their taxi license, right? So it's different because you have a lot of individuals that are now having to fend for themselves and feel like they're being slighted, where it's not like brand going after brand, it's like individual going after individual in a certain respect. I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know how to articulate it.
Well, it makes perfect sense, because in um, in England, the London taxi drivers have to spend a lot of money not only to get a medallion, but to have education about London. But I'll tell you, sometimes the industry is just going to go away. We had a really interesting experience in France because we were driving back from Brittany, and all of a sudden we saw fires along the road, and they were like piles of shit set on fire, or piles of hay set on fire. We didn't know what it was, but we later found out that French dairy farmers and livestock farmers were bringing their hay and their manure to tourist places and setting it on fire in protest for low meat and dairy prices. And they
As
were
only
angry.
the French can do.
Well, they were angry because they felt like the supermarkets, should be giving them more money for these animals and for the dairy products. But the reason that prices have collapsed in that market is because the French, like everyone else in the world, are eating less meat. And there's like a complete sea change in the way people eat. Like, I was the only vegan I knew, 5 years ago. Now there is vegan alternatives on restaurant menus in Paris.
Right.
This is like almost unheard of. So of course, can you imagine being a farmer and you've maybe been a farmer since the 15th century, your family?
Well,
And
it's the same
all
thing
of
with
a
the dairy
sudden,
farmers here in the U.S., right? I mean,
you're
and even
disrupted.
cheese farmers. I think the government subsidizes a lot of that because
Yes.
instead of helping the farmers find new occupations, because that's all that they've ever known, and maybe they're third or fourth generation. I know a lot of my clan is, but it's like maybe they don't know what else they can do because all they've ever done is the livelihood is be a farmer. But if the consumers are not demanding that product anymore, you have to be okay on finding a new path and figuring out what it is you're going to do. And maybe that's what we just need to do is figure out a better education system where if your industry is not as thriving as it was, what are your options? And some of these guys don't have any options, but there's got to be something that as we look to innovate, we can't do it at the expense of humans and completely destroying their own livelihood too without giving them opportunities to grow.
And see, that's the part where I ethically have the biggest problem with all the disruption and the sharing collaborative gig, whatever you want to call it, because it does hit industries like farms, and it's like we have unintended consequences all over the place. The taxi drivers are pretty visible. The French farmers are trying to make themselves visible. But the newspaper reporters have had this going on for the last 20 years. And the newspaper industry has had it. The healthcare industry is having it. It's all over the place. So it just leads into these overwhelming questions like, what is the future of work, or how are we all going to live, or how much responsibility do we have for our fellow human being?
And I think it's interesting because I think there's just certain things like, say, take the neighbor goods or the small power tool things. Like I have a small backyard, but I don't have place to store, say, a lawnmower or a weed whacker. And so services like that would be great that I can go borrow somebody else's weed whacker once every 3 months that I need it. Right. But I would never be a consumer of a weed whacker. So for me, I don't feel like that is detrimental to somebody else's job because the odds of me ever buying one is minimal, if ever. But there's so many other industries, like you just said too, Francine, that, innovation is actually killing other occupations and in industries as a whole. And so we do have to kind of always keep that mindful, right? I mean, we're going to take out big oil with electric cars. I'm not as concerned, but there are people that work at oil refineries and some of these places that if that goes away, there's a lot of people that will lose a lot of jobs. And there's consequences and pros on both sides.
Well,
I just wanted to take hang on. I just wanted to take a hot second here to just thank maybe some regular Gilmore gangers for being in our chat room today and
Hi, Gilmore
making
Gang.
it come alive. So we're very happy about that because try as we might, our chat room has been
Oh,
a
I better
little
look at
lonely
it.
lately. But if you have
I
it,
better look
ladies, if
at
you
it.
can look at it, please do. So hi to Tom and Christina and Kevin and
Oh my
some others.
goodness. I had no
So
idea.
it's nice. It's really, really, really nice to see you
Why
there.
don't you give the URL so I can get in?
I will do that right now, Francine. There it is.
Chat Center. Oh,
Can you see
Okay.
it?
Yes.
It's
Maybe
bad if we don't know our own URL.
and I can, I can actually say it too. It's chat.center/G3.
I'm in.
Sorry to interrupt the flow, but
No, but
I
it's
wanted
good.
to
And
do
somebody
that.
actually, like Christina asked, like, what can you define the gig economy? I don't know, Francine, if you want to take a stab, but I think that's actually really important because it's kind of, we're talking about it, but I think it'd be interesting to kind of define it.
It's an economy where, on the upside, people have the freedom to pursue part-time occupations. So, if, for instance, you wanted to support yourself while taking acting, lessons or trying to get a job as an actor on the Broadway stage, you could be an Uber driver. And there are a plethora of part-time jobs. That's the upside that give you flexible time and flexible things to do. The downside of it is nobody has job security, nobody has benefits, and some of these companies are severely limited in how much they can grow, and we don't know if they're going to be around for a long time. So let us assume that you thought you were set, you were a mom and you worked for Homejoy and you thought to yourself, oh, good, I can clean houses while my kids are in school. Well, now you can't. So it has its ups and downs. There is no job security. And that's why I say that this all segues into the future of work. And I actually think that it is the ethical responsibility of the technology community to think about some of these issues. And I would like to see them stressed at some of the tech conferences. In other words, what are the unintended consequences of some of the things we do? Not that we shouldn't do them. I'm certainly not urging that. But in my lifetime, which is a long lifetime, things have changed more and more and more and more quickly. And the time people have to recover and reinvent and reposition themselves for supporting themselves has become a shorter and shorter and shorter framework.
Well, you're talking about taking a little more holistic view at our lives,
Right.
And you're right. I think at conferences
When you're
we're not
disrupting
really.
farmers, you're really at a very basic level.
well,
Well, it's one of the things we try to do here in this show, really, is, talk about, we're talking about tech, but we're also talking about, um, what things aren't going right when we're using this stuff. How does it fail us? I mean, not to be like just a downer about it, but I mean, there are plenty of, like I said to you earlier today in text, I've been taking not a sabbatical, but I've been laying off the social media a little bit this summer, and just kind of seeing how that feels, and not so quick to experience and then post right away. And I have been finding that the experience of doing that is allowing me to just think about it some more and internalize it, and not then see my experience through the way I post about it, which is a little different than how I'm actually experiencing it, right? I don't want that post to then all of a sudden be my memory of it. And so I've been playing with that a little bit, but I don't know what the alternative is. It's kind of like, do you do it or you don't?
Well, it's funny. I remember a couple Christmases ago, my dad, not a tech guy by any shape or form. I mean, he uses my mom's Facebook account now because he found how to get to the internet, and I love that.
That's so
But
cute.
yeah, it trips me out sometimes. But I think it was interesting. A couple Christmases ago, like I was taking a lot of photos, and I was just in like, here's me
In
behind
the
the
zone.
camera screen the entire time, and we're talking, and we're sitting outside, and I'm taking sunset photos because I live on the beach, and it was gorgeous, and I was snapping away, and I was talking to him at the same time, and he all of a sudden I heard him go quiet. And I was like, what's going on? And he's like, how can you actually be here enjoying this moment when you're looking through that lens? And I'm like, well, I'm trying to like add some visual elements to the experience that I'm having right now. And he's like, no, no. He's like, you're actually shaping what is happening. And it was just kind of like, it caught me off guard for a minute because I realized how much of this we do and that we're already telling the story and how we're trying to shape it. And I was like, I was going to add some of those commentaries that he was giving me too when I posted the photos. And I realized, oh, you're right. I probably actually missed some things, truth be told, that he was saying, even though I thought I was paying attention because I was so engrossed in trying to capture the moment of the sunset that I was going to then share with my community or my network. And I just thought it was kind of a random thing.
Well, we have learned to, and actually, that doesn't bother me as much because I was a literature major and in an English major, and we learned a lot about art as a way to frame the experience. And we learned that and I'm going to use the new terms for this now, any content creator, which used to be, painters and musicians and writers, any content creator frames experience. That is what art does. It frames life. So I'm not saying all my Facebook posts are art, but I am saying that when I take a digital photo that I think I'm putting on Facebook, I give some thought as to whether it frames life in such a way that it adds value. Like this morning, I took a photo of some cactus in front of a house down the block from where I live. And, I was like, well, I'm taking this photo because many people do not live in Arizona and they don't see this landscape and they don't they don't understand how different it is than where it is they live. So I feel like that's a kind of sharing, and I think we've gotten the conversation a little confused by the actual tech and what disruption it causes, and the tech that has now faded into the background, which is Facebook and and Twitter, the things we use every day, and what kind of connection and community they give us. Christy, when you present something to your community, I want it. I want to see it. I want to know your experience. And I want to know Tina's experience. And I'm pissed when you guys go offline because I don't live in the same. Seriously, I don't live in the same town that you do. And, we're not in that era where you called up people and spent hours on the phone with them every day.
Well, and this is funny because this kind of relates to the conversation we had last week that I unfortunately lost internet connection. It's one of the more interesting parts, but which was going to feature me. But anyways, but it was the tech where like the tech was actually forcing you or encouraging you to have these conversations with people because you want to be able to reach out, and we get caught in our daily life. But unrelated to that, I think it's interesting. Chris and I, my husband and I, about 2 years ago, went to this event called Camp Grounded. And you're up at some Boy Scout camp up in the woods of Mendocino with about 200 other geeks. And the requirement was just to bring yourself. You actually gave yourself some other random identity. So you didn't know your name. They didn't know your name. They didn't know your occupation. You had to keep all digital tech away from you. No digital cameras, no phones, no iPads, no nothing. And you checked it for a weekend. And it was interesting, like, first I was like, no way am I going to do this because what the hell are you going to talk to people about if you don't, but then of course you get over that. And it was really interesting because there was no hidden agenda. There was no shaping a conversation because I wanted to share this specific photo with you or having some kind of preconceived notion of who you are because I know where you work and what you do. It was really great at kind of getting to know the real people again. And I thought it was beautiful because I'm a big tech fan lover big tech fan lover. How about a big lover of tech? I don't know. Anyways, but I thought it was genius. It's called Camp Grounded, and they're doing another one in North Carolina that coming up the end of August. But it's such a great idea because I think as much as we want the tech to connect us, and some of us need the tech to connect us, that there's some beauty in being able to be completely disconnected. Part of what you said, Tina, earlier, right, is taking a step back and not having to document every single second of your life or share that with everybody, knowing there's some people like Francine that do want you to share every single second of your life, and kind of like finding that happy balance.
You know, and I find that, I mean, it's not like I don't want to share it. I do, but I'm experimenting with the timing of it. But what I'm finding is if I don't share it sort of quickly, the feeling kind of leaves. Yeah. And then, you know, later on that evening or the next day, I kind of go, whatever. You know, there is something about being in the moment, doing it right then and there, and then sort of waiting on it, thinking about it, and then it just feels a little different. And I think that's kind of interesting. And I don't really know what it means, but I think it's interesting nonetheless.
You know what? I have just read on.
Hang on. Rebecca was. Hang on. Hold on.
I think there's just so much noise that tech creates, and you know, lately we talk a lot about, especially around founders and entrepreneurs, reaching burnout. And I actually reached a burnout about 2 years ago, very extreme. And people always warned me, you know, make time for yourself, make sure you cut off. And on the flip side, there is the pressure to always be on and checking your email and working 24 hours a day. And when I hit that burnout, the thing I needed to do, and I think is healthy, was just to shut everything off. And it just really eliminated a lot of that noise that was being created with work, with the startups, with technology, with the demands of all the people wanting something, posting things. What are you doing? What are you up to? And even when you wake up in the morning and you go to approach your email and you have that anxiety in your gut, right? Before you even look at your email, you feel it. I mean, that's maybe a sign that you need to take a little tech detox and step away from it all. I think it's healthy. Yeah. Especially, I don't know, for someone like me, it's healthy who's an introvert, and I don't want people to be knowing everything that I do. Just having that space, just for a little breathing room, is healthy.
I was in South Carolina recently and sort of just really, I don't know, wasn't looking at Facebook very much, wasn't posting much of anything, if anything. And you know, we get really good at posting and sharing in social media. And what I found is that I kind of needed a little time to get good at just being with people. And it felt good, you know, just to sit around a table and talk and not worry about the post and not worry about anyone else knowing about it or it being important or not important, just really being in the moment. And honestly, maybe I was a little rusty.
Well, I think you brought up an interesting point a few minutes ago about being in the moment. And because there's plenty of times where I've taken a photo of a sunset or a dish that I was eating or just being out with friends and like wanting to do that. I'm like, oh, I'm going to get this up. But then I didn't want to like break the conversation I was in to get that post up right now. Like I'll save it for later and I'll post it later. And then like you said, sometimes you look at it and say, yeah, just that post never goes because you were not in the moment anymore and the moment's kind of fleeting. And I wonder like how many photos on our phone are those moments, right? Like I probably have 50 in the last week where I've taken photos like, I love that. I want to share that. I think Francine would love that. And then it just stays on my phone, taking up my storage.
Well, you know, I think this is generational. Part of it's generational because I find it very easy to unplug, you know, because I was unplugged most of my life. So the joy for me is to be able to plug You know what I'm saying? They're, the habit for me is still to not answer the email when I don't want to answer it, and not, and not do anything that I don't want to do to take me out of the moment. So I posted quite a bit on Facebook when I was on my vacation, but it really didn't interfere with my time swimming with my grandson, or playing tennis or any of that, because I just don't do it when there's something actually happening that I want to be part of. But you guys are in a different situation, because you all have more, you've got jobs or companies, or, get lots of responsibilities, and people do come at you in a way that that I don't let them come at me, because I have a lifetime of that not being possible.
That's a great point.
I see.
So, and what about this situation? So, someone in our chat room, Kevin, says, my girlfriend of 15 years doesn't have a smartphone and doesn't use Facebook. It causes some separation in our life and social connections. So, what about it when we've got these friends who don't have it, or don't get it?
Honestly, because I'm in a relationship with, and oftentimes we're in separate countries, I don't know what we would do without technology and Skype and Facebook Messenger, and feeling like you can just call that person anytime, or FaceTime with them. I mean, it actually really does make a difference. And so I feel for this, Kevin, who is struggling with that. Because, man, as an introvert and needing to step away, gosh, having that connection with him when we can't physically be there together, technology has made such a difference for that. And I can't imagine having a long distance relationship 20 years ago.
There are very few people that I know right now who don't use a cell phone, or don't, and making plans with them, like you're going to meet them somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm so used to, you're texting along the way. I'm going to be 15 minutes late. Where are you? Maybe we'll meet over here. I mean, how do you do that? I have a nephew in New York City. I have a nephew in New York City who does not own a cell phone. And yes, he's a Gilmore. Well, he's sort of a Gilmore. And his last name is Gilmore. He doesn't own a cell phone. And I freak out when I have to make plans with him. I'm like, oh my God, we're going to make plans with Daniel. What if things change? What if it's going to be a little bit different? What if we have to move the time? And he's on his bike and he's without a cell phone. What am I going to do? I have to actually be in the place I told him like 3 days ago.
I think
seems unfair.
That's a serious issue, because we also have standards of connection now. And by the way, on the
standards of connection,
where we have expectations.
I'm going to explain that to Daniel.
While I was
3 posts a day.
While I was waiting to talk again, I was reading Facebook, and Mark Zuckerberg has announced on Facebook that he and Priscilla are pregnant, and that they had a miscarriage once before, and that they're very happy, and they were very open about sharing the miscarriage and the pregnancy. And I just felt like I know Randy rather well, but I don't know Mark hardly at all. And but I just felt so happy for him that I teared up, because I know what that's like, for families that have had a miscarriage to finally have a pregnancy that's far enough along that you can. 3 miscarriages, Tom Garriello said. So that makes it even harder, Actually, and then think about Sheryl Sandberg. I think it made Sheryl feel good when she got on Facebook and shared about Dave, because I know she answered back me. And I'm not a person who knows her, all that well. I think that people who reached out to her made her feel better, and that she felt like there was an enormous value.
Well,
it is community.
Of social, and we've talked about that before. There's I think there's an important thing. Like, I actually have a couple friends that jokingly don't have smartphones, right? But they could still text me. Flip phones work just as well, if not as beautifully.
Just as
Um,
well.
just as well, they do. You can text on a flip phone. It's not a big deal. You know, my BlackBerry, I still have a BlackBerry that's hidden in a trunk somewhere that I could probably sell and somebody would find some use for it. But I think the thing that's interesting is, you know, while they might actually have a Facebook account, they don't use it because they don't like it. And they just felt pressured to kind of have it to experience it, but they don't choose to communicate through these platforms. And they get their news through the TV or the newspaper or magazines. And when we go to have lunch with one another, we find a way to connect. And while it may not be the protocol or the standard of today, we're still able to connect, as challenging as it can be. But at the same time, it's like we talk about a bunch of different things, and sometimes I look at, like, my husband and I are in the same industry, and sometimes I just like don't want to talk about that industry, but sometimes it's all consuming and that's all that you have, and you're like, God. But
Okay,
I
I'm
think,
going to say another thing, Christy. You guys all live in San Francisco, and
yeah,
that is a bubble
Yeah.
because I see
Yeah.
plenty of people that are not in the tech industry because I live in Phoenix. And so, again, it's a completely different, you have no idea how rarefied San Francisco is.
Or
Even
you
in
go.
San Francisco, actually, I have friends who don't work in the tech industry. They work in insurance or retail or whatever. You start talking about tech and their eyes glaze over and they're like, okay, well, how about let's go for a walk this weekend? Or they change the subject because they could care less and it is the most boring subject to them ever. They don't want to
right.
hear about it.
Or
But
go-
they'd rather
Kevin,
talk about
here's
other
the
things.
Or
yeah,
go to
so,
some place where you go to a party and people don't even ask you what you do.
I
Yeah,
love that.
That's
Oh my God.
that's
And
quite
that's,
freeing.
well, that's why I mentioned Camp Grounded, and shout out to like Levi Felix and the guys over there that put this thing together, because it was genius. And it
Hmm.
was even more smart that I couldn't even tell him I was Christy Wells, right? It's like I had to come up with the
I'm
nickname.
the
And
famous
that,
Christy Wells.
well, no, but it's funny because it's like you had to come up with a nickname that you, and some people named you. Like if you couldn't come up with one, you got like, he's Figgle Wigglesworth or something. And that's what you were known as the whole weekend. And I thought that's it's kind of exhilarating. It
You have
scared
to
the
figure out
shit
who
out of
you
me.
are and rely on your own
Definitely.
interpersonal talents.
Well, that's what it is. It's like
Definitely.
for me, I'm much like Rebecca. I'm actually a lot introverted, right? And so for me, taking me out of my comfort zone of, I wanted there to be some basic knowns, so I had something to kind of work from. But you had to start from scratch. And I do actually. I'm a social butterfly and an introvert, so it's kind of my Libra
Yeah,
self is
Christy,
always.
I wouldn't call you an introvert, but
Oh, I
you can
am.
call yourself one if you want to.
I love my alone time, but I also love
I think
hosting
all
parties.
extroverts like their alone time. I'm an extrovert, I admit it, but I like my alone time. I
Well, I
spend
took
a
my
We
Myers-Briggs
really
says I'm
like our alone
actually
time.
three dots over on the extrovert side, but I actually thought I should be more introvert. But that's beside the point. What I was saying
See,
is,
extrovert.
yeah,
They were right.
all
You
right,
made
fine,
me
I'm an
snorful.
extrovert. All right, I'm
You
an
made me snorful.
Embrace it. Embrace it.
embrace it. But what I was trying to say is that I thought it was genius that you couldn't talk about what you did. You had to find something else you had in common with somebody,
Mm.
and you couldn't use tech to do it, which I actually love tech because that's the beauty of it. Like Francine loves Mark sharing that personal story. You wouldn't know that if you didn't have a platform like Facebook and you weren't following him already on that. You wouldn't be able to
Yeah.
experience that story, and other people who have experienced miscarriages wouldn't have a sense of feeling connected and not alone. And I think that's the beauty of the tech today,
Mm.
is being able to connect with those people at the same time, the ability to disconnect and not have tech be the end all in your life, I think is so critical. So all I want to say to Kevin, if you love her, don't worry about it. It's okay, dude. Have your differences. It's healthy.
Well,
Maybe
he's saying
There
that
you
many,
go.
many
gift.
friends of
Sage
his go
advice.
to Burning Man and unplug at Burning Man.
Right.
So,
Sure.
ladies, I'm looking at my watch here.
So we never talked about female founders.
Well-
We're going to have to talk about that next week. But
Y-
I
y-
want to talk about the plight of the female founder at some point on this show,
The
which
plight
is
of the
about
female
women.
founder. That sounds like next week's show.
Yeah, I really want to talk
Because
about
we
it.
need to give it a little more time than 5 minutes.
I agree.
So I
And-
wanna do a little show and tell before
Oh, yes.
before we leave.
Okay.
So this weekend, if you're in San Francisco, we've got this Kitefoil Gold Cup going
Ooh.
on. It is the fastest kiteboard racers on the planet are here in the city. They've been doing qualifying races yesterday and today. So this weekend will be the top racers in the top fleets. This is a 4
Can
event
you back
series.
up and tell people what kiteboarding is, just in case they don't
Just
know?
in case. Yeah. Okay. So kiteboarding, and actually I'll show you what they race on because I have a racer in my household who
Ooh.
is competing today, and we have foil boards and kiteboards everywhere. So for those who don't know, kiteboarding is a water sport where you ride like a wakeboard or a surfboard and fly a kite in the air. And instead of a boat or any other type of vehicle pulling you, you harness the wind, and the wind pulls you. So actually, these guys, they ride on hydrofoils.
Can we see one of those guys?
Yes, of course. Let me grab it. I'm going to.
Okay, we're gonna get
She's
one of
so
these.
excited. I love. See, this is what I love. It has nothing to do with tech,
Right.
right?
By the way, Loic Lemire kiteboards.
A
I bet she
hydrofoil.
knows him.
Who?
Rebecca, because he
Loic,
kiteboards.
Francine's saying Loic
Oh,
Lemire
yes, of course I
kiteboards.
know Loic. Yes. So
Yeah.
this is
Oh.
a
He
Wow.
posts about that all the time. See,
Yeah.
I wouldn't know that, except that I know he does that.
Is that the okay? So hang on, let's see you in bigger.
So
Okay,
this attaches to and this has got a cover. Let me take it off. So so a board would go here, and it attaches to the board, and it's like sail racing, where you have a hydrofoil, and when you get going at certain speeds, you elevate out of the water.
oh,
It reduces the friction, so you can go even faster. So these guys are going,
so you're kind of only
around-
gliding across the water almost,
yes, on
Ooh.
So this is
Ooh.
a surfboard with a kite attached, sort of?
except that it's got it sort
Think
of
of like
elevates,
a tricycle where it lifts you up,
like
right?
a
You're not on the-
hydroplaning sort of thing.
So
Right?
yeah, you're kind of hydroplaning. Have you seen the America's Cup boats when they race
Right.
out of the water on these little
Yes.
fins?
Right.
So similar concept, actually. They've taken this from a lot of the sailing ideas. So
From Larry
here's-
Ellison.
Yes. So here is what actually the fin looks like.
Wow.
This part will elevate out of the water, so it'll be like this.
Where will
And-
you be?
on top of it.
On top of it, yes. So the board goes here, you're riding the board, and then once you get going, this lifts out of the water, and the water will be about
Wow.
here, and you're just basically riding this fin through the water.
Oh, I had
Like-
no idea.
Oh, wow.
I kind
Hey,
of knew what it
Rebecca?
was, but I didn't understand that. I didn't understand the
This-
equipment and what happened with the how you rise out of the water.
Is that a
Yes.
good exercise for seniors?
Uh
what?
oh,
I
Francine.
want to start with body surfing.
Actually,
Francine's trying to figure out whether she can do it.
Yes,
I
I
do
am.
know
I'm trying to
quite
figure
a
out whether
number.
I should try it.
I actually do know quite a number of 60-year-olds, 70-year-olds who actually kiteboard and hydrofoil. So-
Okay.
Francine, you can do it. You
I
can
can
do
do it.
this.
I
You
can do
just
it.
you just played tennis recently again. You can
Right,
do
I
this.
can do it.
Hey, Rebecca, is this Chrissy Field side? Whereabouts on the bay is this?
Yes, Chrissy Field is where that it's happening. You can go to Chrissy Field and watch the races from there. All the kiters will be launching and landing from Chrissy Field. I'm going to be on a support boat over the weekend out on the water for race committee, helping fish out kiters that need trouble.
I could do that. See, there's
Oh.
something.
So this
So-
is going on
So-
today, tomorrow, and Sunday.
yes.
Wow.
Tomorrow and Sunday, and it's being hosted by the St. Francis Yacht Club. Give them a little plug. They run all the sailing regattas that you've probably heard about, big
Oh,
boats,
wow.
Rolex, and so they're hosting that and running all the races. So big thanks to them. Anyway, if you want something fun to do and watch something really different,
Yeah. That sounds really exciting. It
Different
sounds
type of
really
technology.
exciting. And you say it's some of the fastest kiteboard racers in the world.
The fastest kiteboard racers in the world are currently competing in this race. They are from three of them are from France. In the top three, one of them is here in San Francisco, based here in San Francisco. So he's competing.
When you say
and there's
fast, what kind of speeds are we talking about?
They're going about 40 to 45 miles per hour on the water.
Wow.
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 Yeah.
Without
Extremely
any covering, so to
This is
speak,
like
a
as
wet
fast as our car is going
Yeah,
down
like
a
there's no
non-highway
car around
street.
them, right.
You're talking about going on the water that
in
fast
your body.
with your body.
Yes. When
In
you
your-
crash, it's a pretty hard crash, and you're falling off, like a 6-foot ladder now with this thing out of the
Jeez.
water. So a lot of them now wear helmets. Not everybody, but that's pretty much the extent of the protection that they have. Some wear impact vests, which is just like a little padded vest, but still, these guys are going really fast and it's really dangerous.
And
And
you
especially
yourself are a
with this
kiteboarder,
thing,
right,
You
Rebecca?
don't want to get hit by this thing. Sorry, say that
You
again?
yourself are a kiteboarder.
Yes, I am, but I do not do this level of kiteboarding, that's for
Okay.
sure. I leave that to the professionals. And
This
yeah,
will
go
now
for
be a
my guy.
podcast
My
about
guy's
the
gonna be
X
out there.
Games. Isn't this the X Games?
It should be.
Okay.
should be.
Well,
Maybe
that's
they'll pick it
exciting.
up.
Thanks for that
Different
info.
tech.
We learned
Yeah.
something here. We learned something about
Exactly. I
water
learned a lot. Thank
water
you.
tech.
Yes.
Okay.
Sailing tech.
All right, ladies. So, whatever other things that we thought we were going to talk about, we ain't. And we'll save it for next week's show. So, let me do my thank yous. Thank you to New Tech and their lovely TriCaster, without which I cannot do this show. I get to push all these fancy buttons that light up. It's always so fun. And we're using Ustream to stream live and record G3, as well as the Gilmore Gang. The Gilmore Gang did not record today because we took their spot. No, we didn't take it. They had to record tomorrow. But we did take their spot, okay? So that was nice. Thank you for the chat room, all the participants who showed up today. It makes us feel oh so great to see you in our space and to invite you into our home. And thank you to my lovely co-hosts. Thank you, Francine Hardaway, Rebecca Woodcock,
Thank you,
Christy
Tina.
Wells. Thank you so much for being here, for showing up, for having such interesting conversation. I always miss it when we don't do this show.
So do I.
I always love it when we do. Okay. Thanks so much, ladies. Let's get our logo ready. Oops. Let's get back on you. And let's get our logo ready, and then we'll get to say, until next time, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.